So hi, I'm Mary Parthemer, Alert 3 information session, and we're going to go through a lot of information today, so please have something to take notes with. And I want you to have all your questions answered by the end of the time today so that you will be ready to register for winter term if that's when you're coming back and if you're ready to do that by the end of today. I wanted to start here with the Moodle courses because you all should have a Moodle class, an Alert 3 Moodle class on your Moodle, and there's lots of information there. So one thing that you're going to want to check out and make sure that you have after today's session is this course, and it's going to look like it will be one of these two. And it doesn't matter which one you're in because both of them have the same information. So we're going to start right here. If you don't have a Moodle course, if you can't find a Moodle course on your Moodle page, it may be because your record has been inactivated. And that would happen if you have been out of school for more than 4 terms. Thank you. If that happens, you need to go on My Lane. When can I register? It would say your record's inactivated and there's a place to click there and activate it. That would bring your Moodle classes back in about a day. It takes overnight for that to happen. So here we are. Lots of information about academic progress standards. If you've reached Alert 3, it's really, really important that you understand what the academic progress standards are and what you need to do to meet them. It's important to understand that before you reach Alert 3, but especially if you're at Alert 3, you want to be sure that you understand what they are, what's been getting in your way of meeting those standards, and how you're going to make a change in this next term that you're coming back. Is everybody planning on getting back in school in winter term? And classes, you can see the class schedule starting today, and you can start registering as soon as next week. If you complete everything today, you will have the ability to register at your registration date next week for a back on course class and other winter classes. So go through this. Make sure, we're going to go through some information today, but make sure you understand what the academic progress system is. And here's information that would have gone out at the beginning of this term. There's lots of links so that you can review what the academic progress standards are. Here's a place to the frequently asked questions. So if you have questions about it, likely it's in this information, and it's good to review that anyway so that you know what's going on. Here's a place that you can go to a completion rates and GPA calculator for figuring out where you stand during each term and what would happen if you got a C- in this class or a D+, or you can put in all your classes in sort of a what-if scenario and how would that affect your academic progress standards and also your financial aid SAP standards if you're getting financial aid. Here's the Keys to Success slideshow. So, excuse me, all of you, and I should have checked this, should have already been to an Alert 2 Keys to Success workshop. Have you been to one? Okay, because I was thinking maybe that was the confusion there. So that's the plan you have returned to you, what you did there. And here is the Alert 3 information session that we're going to review the PowerPoint today. So after this session, you are welcome to go to this if you have any questions, and we can get, you can get information again about it. So first off, I want you to talk with somebody nearby, 2 or 3 people, and define what are the academic progress standards. All right, so let's hear what you think the academic progress standards. I want the most clear definition we can possibly get. So what goes into academic progress standards? Completion rate. And what's it a completion rate of? Completion of what?
67% of your credits.
67% completion rate of credits, and sometimes it's confused with classes. It's not classes, that's different than credits, because if you had 4 classes, you'd need to pass 3 of them. But credits, it's based on if you're in 12 or 14 or 9 or however many credits you're enrolled in when. This is an important one. But it's 67% completion of credits that you're enrolled in when?
Each term.
Yeah, it's by term. So the academic is each term, but it's enrolled in as of the refund deadline. And when's the refund deadline?
Sunday midnight.
Sunday at the end of week 1 at midnight. So Sunday, end of week 1, and this is really important. So you have and summer term is a little bit different. So if you're in summer term, you want to be sure you know when the refund deadline is because there's shorter term classes. But for fall, winter, and spring, the refund deadline is Sunday of at the end of week 1 at 11:59 p.m., just before midnight. And that means you have that first week to make decisions about, is this the right class load that I have? Are these the right classes? Am I going to be able to do this with the other stuff I have going on in my life? And if not, you can drop classes with no harm done up till Sunday at 11:59. I'm going to change this, 11:59 p.m. So then it doesn't even show on your transcript, and you're okay. If you wait till 12:01 a.m. on Monday, it's required that you complete those classes and that you pay for those classes. So that you want to use that refund period to your advantage to be sure you're in the right classes. So 67% of completion of credits enrolled in as of the refund deadline. And what's the other part? GPA. And what's the GPA? 2.0. And these are minimums. These are minimums. You want to be going for 100% completion rate for most terms. And you want to be going for over a 2.0 GPA as well. Because if you got a 2.0 GPA overall, and you're planning on transferring to a university, how many people are planning to transfer? So a number of you. 2.0 probably won't get you into most universities. So you're really shooting for more than this, aiming for higher than a 2.0, aiming for greater than a 67%. And there's really important reasons that these are the standards, and we'll talk about them in a few minutes, but it's critical that you know what these are so that you can be, every term that you're enrolled, you can know the number of credits you're in, how many credits you need to complete, and sometimes you're not going to, it won't make sense that you can't do this 67%. For example, if you were enrolled totally in 2 4-credit classes, what would the completion rate have to be to meet the academic progress standards? 100%. Who said that? Yeah, 100%, because you can't complete 67% of 2 4-credit classes. You would be completing 50%, 0%, or 100%. So if you're going to meet academic progress standards, it needs to be 100%. So really important to understand that. Okay, so what does it mean to be at Alert 3? Students reach Alert 3 the 3rd time they don't meet academic progress standards. That's that minimum of 2.0 and minimum of 67% completion of credits enrolled in after the refund deadline each term. And the intervention, this is an Alert 3 information session. This is not the intervention. This is the information session that is going to get you to be able to register for the intervention, which is a 1-credit full-term class. And we don't want you to come in and just do that class. We want you to be registered in other classes so that you can use the information that you're getting in that class with the other classes that you're doing. But the maximum number of credits that you can be enrolled in is 13 credits. So if you have planned, 2 4-credit classes and a 5-credit class, that's not going to work because you have to be in that 1-credit class as well. So the maximum, and that doesn't mean you have to take 13 credits, absolutely not, but it means the maximum you can be enrolled in this next term when you come back for back on course is 13. During the back on course class, these are things you're going to have to do. You're going to have to meet with your program counselor, your academic advisor, and to get midterm progress reports from faculty. There's other things you're going to need to do too. But those are requirements of the class. And so it would be my recommendation that you would go ahead and meet with your academic advisor or program counselor now as you're planning your next term's classes, winter term's classes, and that part of what you're going to have to do is have a term-by-term planner up to date to the end of whatever your certificate or degree program is. So better that you do it now before you even get into the back on course class so you can use that information as you're registering. Just let them know when you're going in. I'm on alert 3. I'm going to be going into back on course. So please be sure to do this so that it counts for what I need for the back on course class. Then you'll be able to use it, and much better choice to do that rather than getting in. You guys are on time so you can make decisions about your classes and your schedule and get them as early as you possibly can, your earliest date.
How much does the intervention class cost?
1 credit, what 1 credit costs. So $98 of tuition, and I don't know that there's any fees connected with it. If you're getting financial aid, as long as you're in good standing with financial aid will pay for it. And I said you'll be able to register on time next week, and that's going to be dependent on not having any other holds on your record. So that's going to be something we're going to talk more about and something you want to check today if you have any other holds. So why does Lane care if you meet academic progress? Why is it important? Well, it's important because it's what is required to do to be able to get the degrees and certificates and go on to the 4-year universities that you're all aiming to do. The United States Department of Education has minimum standards that are required to be able to get these degrees, and they correspond to what we have as the academic progress standards. It makes a difference to have a degree. It makes a difference to get that certificate. You're going to make more money. It makes the difference in whether you complete the degrees and certificates you are working on. It helps you maintain confidence, maintain momentum. Every time you don't complete a class, it costs you at least twice in money and time. It costs you more than twice in money. Because if you're having to take a class again, you're not only having to pay for it again, but you're having to pay for the time that it's taken to do it again. So it's costly, and I think that it also costs people in confidence. Maybe not the first time, but as you go on and aren't completing, people start feeling like, I'm not sure I'm supposed to be here. Loan debt. Loans, there's lots of talk about student loans and how much, there's a whole movement towards making college free, and hopefully that happens before I retire. I hope I see that happens. And part of what they're talking about, if college becomes free, is that students have to meet standards to keep that free college tuition coming in. But currently, lots of loans are going out for students to complete their education. That's a good thing. It's good that there's the ability to borrow some money to get an education, because it does make a difference in how much money you can make, what kinds of jobs you can get, what kinds of movement you can make. But if you're borrowing a lot of money, if you're borrowing money twice to finish the same class, that doesn't make good economic sense at all. And for every $10,000 that a student borrows, it's going to take them about 10 years, will take them 10 years at paying off at about $150 a month. And you can borrow $10,000 a year, more than that. And so you don't want to be borrowing money and not completing the classes. So these are differences between academic progress standards and financial aid satisfactory academic progress. So all students at Lane who are taking credit classes have the academic progress standards apply to them, okay? That's everybody. Only students who are getting financial aid, which about 70% of the students at Lane do get financial aid, have these standards apply as well. So if you're getting financial aid, you have two sets of standards. They're similar but different. The academic progress standards are based on every term. So every term you're expected to meet that 67% completion of credits that you're enrolled in as of the refund deadline in a 2.0, where financial aid SAP standards are cumulative. The reason we have these be by term is that they're more sensitive, and we want them to be more sensitive. We want them to alert. That the reason we call them alerts is that we want students to be alerted to, okay, something's going on. I need to pay attention to what's going on. Either I'm taking too many credits for other stuff that's going on in my life. I'm taking the credit load that I'm taking is maybe too intense. So that's what we want students to be alerted to. They are more sensitive, so that hopefully students will recognize what's going on, make a change before financial aid becomes at risk. In academic progress standards, the completion rate is rounded up. So if you have completed 8 out of 12 credits in a term, that equals 66.66 and on %. That's rounded up, so you've met the 67% completion rate. In the financial aid SAP standards, they do not round up. So if you were at 80 of 120, you had completed cumulatively 80 out of 120, be the same percentage, and they don't round up, so you wouldn't meet the SAP standards for that term, and you'd be at warning. Applies to everyone, applies to those with financial aid. The academic progress standards does not directly affect financial aid. So if you hit Alert 3 or if you hit Alert 4, it's not going to, that in itself is not going to affect your financial aid. However, students who are reaching Alert 3 and Alert 4 are more apt to be, if they're getting financial aid, are more apt to have their financial aid affected, because it means there's been 3 or 4 times at least that they haven't been meeting those standards along, and so that means it's going to affect your cumulative rates. So it doesn't directly affect, but it certainly can indirectly affect. This is a direct effect on financial aid. If you end up one term in a row in this standard of not meeting the SAP standards, you're on warning, probation, which means you have to meet them the next time, and you may need to meet 100%. You need to know what your financial aid expectations are in order to get out of that probation status. And if you have a second term, then your financial aid is suspended, and you have to appeal to get it back. It may or may not be approved, so it has some pretty significant consequences. The academic progress standards can lead to being out of school. In fact, please pay attention, if you hit another time of not meeting the academic progress standards, you will be at Alert 4, dismissal. You will be out of school for at least 2 terms, and you need to apply to come back with a pretty rigorous petition to return, really outlining how things are going to be different. You need to meet with a number of people. So that will happen if you don't meet academic progress standards again. However, and you'll hear this in your back on course class, but I want you to hear this time too at this point. When you come back at your Alert 3 status, so winter term, it sounds like for most of you, you're planning to come back, and you're in back on course, and you complete that term in good standing and successfully complete your back on course class, that's one term in good standing. And then if you have 2 more terms in good standing, then if something happened that you didn't meet academic progress standards again, you'll automatically hit Alert 4, but you can contact academic progress standards at lanecc.edu and say, hey, I had 3 terms after my Alert 3, and they will turn you back to Alert 3 again so that you're not dismissed. So it's really, really important to be going forward with this plan of how are you going to meet the standards, and that's going to take figuring out what's been getting in your way, what's been getting in your way of meeting these standards and doing something different. Questions? Okay, this is how grades impact academic progress. Letter grades and the letter grades of A, B, C, D, which is confusing to me, and P are grades that count in the completion rate as completed classes. So I get it, A, B, C, I get P. It's a little bit confusing to me that D counts as a completed credit, but it does in the academic progress standards. It does for SAP standards. It doesn't count as if you got a D in a class that's required for your degree program, it's not going to count as completing that class. You'd have to retake it. But in the academic progress standard system, in the SAP system, it counts as completed. Now the confusing point is D is only a 1.0 in your GPA, so a D can bring down your GPA, and you start, being at risk of not meeting the 2.0, and you have to meet both parts of this. These are grade notations that do not count as completed credits. So the asterisk, what shows as an asterisk on your transcripts, means you've dropped the class after the refund deadline. If you did it before the refund deadline, it's not going to show on your transcript. So that's an asterisk, it's not completed. An NP, not completed. NC is a grade notation that faculty have an option to provide to a student if the student hasn't shown up or hasn't done enough work to earn a grade. I would never, ever count on that happening, because the other option that a faculty member has is to give you an F. And a lot of faculty will give you an F if you just quit coming or aren't turning in work. So it would be in your interest to drop the class. I mean, that's going to also not count as completed credits, but you're not counting on getting an NC, which won't affect your GPA. An F significantly impacts your GPA. The other classes that don't count as completed credits is audit class, which is signified on our transcripts as a U, and an incomplete. And the incomplete grade is, you can approach a faculty member if something's happened towards the end of the term that, something's got in your way of getting that coursework completed. And the way the policy reads is that a faculty member can give a grade of incomplete if about 75% of the work has been completed. Now, an incomplete, if you get that, the intention is that you're going to complete that class, you're going to complete that coursework and have a grade change. But until you have that grade change, it will count as not completed credits. But there are 2 ways that you can have an alert status reversed. 2 ways. One is to get a grade change. So if you were below academic progress standards in a term because you had an incomplete or 2 incompletes, you get that coursework completed, your faculty member turns in your grades, and it shows on your transcript, you can notify academic progress standards at lanecc.edu. It's been changed, and that alert status can be reversed. And if you still have a registration hold, it could be removed. So if any of you are at Alert 3 right now, and you have incompletes on your record, and it hasn't been too long ago and it could still be completed work, it would be in your best interest to spend time right now getting those grades completed, getting the work turned in, getting the grades changed, and turning your status back to Alert 2. If you can't do that before classes start, it's certainly, don't not sign up for back on course. Sign up for back on course, be ready to take that class, start that class if you haven't done this. But if this is a possibility for you, do it. It's going to save you time and money and put you at a place that's less tentative, I'd say. GPA, these are the grades that count in GPA, A, B, C, D, and F. And A's are 4 point, B's are 3, C 2, D 1, F 0. And it's up to faculty, it's up to individual faculty members whether they give pluses or minuses. If you get a plus, if you had a D plus, you'd be at a 1.3. A plus adds 0.3, a minus takes away 0.3. So if you had a D plus, 1.3. If you had a D minus, it'd be 0.7. And it's really important to understand this. I have seen students who have reached an alert status having all C's. They had C, 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 and C minus. And there's no way you can reach a 2.0 if you had all C's and a C minus. If you had a C plus and a C minus and these grades in these classes were equal, they were both 4-credit classes, then you'd be at a 2.0. But if you had all C's and a C minus, you couldn't reach the 2.0. So really important to know, does each individual faculty that you have give pluses and minuses? And always, always know where you stand in a class at all times. If you're not clear, if there's not a way to track it yourself, talk to your faculty members. Make sure you're on track for that. And like this is week 5 of this term, it's come really fast. It's really important that students know where they stand because there's still time to make changes. But if you wait until week 8 or 9 or 10, there isn't that chance to really make that significant of a change. So I said 2 ways to turn back an alert status. One is the grade change, and an incomplete is set up for that. I have seen faculty that have worked with students, and I've seen faculty that haven't worked with students on this, that a student who had been working in the class and doing, participating, showing up, doing the work, but got a D or a C minus or a D plus, where faculty members have been willing to have the student do additional work and change the grade. And that, that happens too. Sometimes faculty members make mistakes and they put down the wrong grade, so be sure you're checking your grades immediately when they come out. And if there's a problem, getting in touch with the faculty member or the department immediately so you can get that changed. The second way you can get an alert status turned back is if you get a refund for a term that you didn't meet academic progress standards. And the refund policy says that if a student has had extenuating circumstances, they can apply for a refund. Sometimes that refund doesn't really mean money back in your pocket, but it can mean that it's a status that changes it so that term does not count against a student. So some of the extenuating circumstances that I've seen that have been refunded have had to do with, and I saw a student today whose mother's house had caught on fire, and it was a significant event that had happened in a term. That it doesn't have to be quite that significant, but deaths in families, health issues, broken legs, surgeries, things like that, health issues for family members that you're responsible for. So if something has happened, as soon as possible, go through the process in fact, in the term, if possible, go through the process. There's a college process. You can just Google refunds in the Lane webpage, and you can find the process. Do that, and if that happens, again, you need to notify Academic Progress Standards at lanecc.edu to have that reversed. So sometimes students come to these sessions and go, oh, wow, that applies to me, and leaves and takes care of that. And if that's true, then do that for sure. This is a chart just to give you an example of how time and money really add up and why it is that sometimes, it's often, well, first, there's the myth that some students have that you have to be going to school full-time, 12 credits or more, to get financial aid. And I know how that comes about because when financial aid award letters are sent out, they're sent out as if you are going to school full-time, 12 credits or more. But you do not have to be going to school full-time to get financial aid. And you can go to the financial aid office and say, what if I was half-time? What if I was three-quarter time? So you don't have to do that. The other myth I think that exists is that students really want to get through school fast. So it seems like you're going to go through school fast if you take more credits. But if you're signing up for credits and not completing them on a regular basis, that's slowing you down. It's not speeding you up. It's making it even slower than if you were signing up for 9 credits a term. And it costs a lot. So this is an example. This is a student who signs up for 12 credits, and we're just going to say $100 per credit. The cost per credit at Lane is $98 a credit, and then there's all sorts of fees on top of that. There's books. There's all the living expenses. So it costs more than that, but just for simplicity, we'll use that. So these 12 credits that this student signs up for cost $1,200 and more, $1,200 and more. So in this term, the student completes 6 of those credits, a 50% completion rate. And we're just going to pretend in all of this that they're above a 2.0 GPA. So if the student only completes 6, that means their cost per credit has just gone up to $200 per credit instead of $100 per credit. They've got a 50% completion rate. That's put them at Alert 1 in the Academic Progress Standards system. If they're a student who's also receiving financial aid, it's put them at a warning status. They'll still get financial aid the next term. You get a financial aid when you're on warning status, but if they have another term in a row where you don't meet those SAP standards, then you would lose your financial aid that second term. So the student signs up for 12 more credits, $1,200 more dollars. They have to make up those 6 credits. No matter what they are, they're going to have to make them up. Even if they're not degree requirements, there's 6 credits that they didn't earn, so those will need to be made up. In this term, they're completing 9 of the 12 credits, which is a 75% completion rate. So they're going to meet academic progress standards. We're just assuming it's above a 2.0. But still, with this 9 credits, they're paying for this term $160 per credit instead of the $100 per credit, which is still pretty expensive. And their cumulative completion rate is less than 67%, it's 62.5. So if this student was on financial aid, they will have hit a suspension term, and they will have to appeal to have the financial aid reinstated for a term, or it may not be reinstated and they'd have to pay for the next term on their own. And they now have they have the 6 credits to make up. They have 9 credits to make up from the 6 and the 3. They didn't complete 3 here, so they're 9 behind, $900. Ooh, I must have hit my hand with something. So they're trying to make some stuff up. So they sign up for 15 credits, $1,500, complete 9 of those, 60% completion rate for the term, add Alert 2. The term's credits are costing $167 per credit. And they've completed in this year, and they're still at a cumulative completion rate below what financial aid will accept. So if they had received an appeal that had been approved, it would be gone by then. If they didn't meet it, they would be paying for more credits on their own. So they've spent $3,900 for the 39 credits that they signed up for, $3,900 plus 3 terms worth of rent, worth of food, worth of books, worth of fees. So a lot more than that. And they've only earned 24 credits. So they have to make up this 15 credits, another $1,500 more than a term's time. So it really adds up fast. So it would be much better if somebody is seeing along the way that they're really completing 6 to 9 credits. It would make a whole lot more sense to sign up for 6 to 9 credits a term and complete 100% of them. Pay for that only. Don't start racking up debt. And you're going to be making better progress because there's nothing to make up after that. Does that make sense? No? Yeah. It does? Okay. So, so hopefully you recognize this. This is what you wrote. Add Alert 2 about what was getting in your way and what you were going to do different. And one thing that you won't recognize on here is at the bottom of the sheet is 3 pieces of information. One is the degree program that you are registered in according to MyLane as of this morning or Friday. So if for some reason that is not correct, you could go in and change that in MyLane, but I do not do that without talking to your advisor and talking to a financial aid advisor if you're getting financial aid.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I guess it also applied to him as well. I mean, just because you said our names were on that list, and how would I make sure that we did receive credit for the classes?
You're going to turn in what I'm asking you to turn in today.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we'll get you on there. We'll get you on there. Yeah. And then the other way you're going to, the other way you're going to check to be sure is that you're going to check MyLane, when can I register, and ensure the red Alert 3 hold, back on course hold, has been moved down. It shows black. It'll show today's date or maybe tomorrow's date. And that's going to allow you to register next week. And I'm going to explain, it will come back on, and I'll explain when we're done. But all of you are going to do that. And if it didn't go away, then you need to be contacting Academic Progress Standards at lanecc.edu and say, hey, I was at this workshop on 10, whatever today is, 10/26. So you've got the degree program. You also have your cumulative GPA and your cumulative completion rate. So what I'm hoping is that people's cumulative GPA and cumulative completion rate is above a cumulative 2.0 and above a 67%. That's going to mean, if it's above those standards, it's going to mean that if you are getting financial aid, you should be in good standing. If it's below that and you are expecting financial aid, it means you really want to be sure you are clear where you stand with financial aid. And there's a couple of things you can do. One, you can check your My Finances tab in MyLane and see what it says for financial aid status. But my other recommendation is that you stop by the financial aid office and say, where do I stand? I'm wanting to come back winter term. What do I need to do? So that you get clear information there. So what I want you to do is look at these success plans that you developed and answer these questions specifically and in detail. And you two are going to have to think about, what did you put on that? So what academic or personal barriers are still getting in the way of achieving academic progress standards? And sometimes I know some students have said, well, it's something new that's come up. So if it's something new, indicate this was happening before and now it's this new thing that's in the way. Because what's really important about writing about what's been getting in your way is it's important to recognize what's been getting in your way so you can do something different, so you can address that and make sure that things are going to be different than what's happened in the past. Because again, if you don't meet the standards for a fourth time, you're out for a couple of terms. And some students have said that it's actually been a good thing for them, but I don't think that's where anybody is wanting to do. But then what strategies have you been using in recent terms that were helpful? And how were they helpful? What ways did they help? And what will you do in your next term to succeed? List at least 3 strategies that will address these barriers that are getting in your way. Be specific and detailed. And in what ways will these strategies help address the obstacles? So go ahead, spend a little bit of time writing, and then we'll do some talking about it. So if you're still working on it, that's fine, that's great. Make sure you get these questions answered. But I want to start talking about and hearing from you. What are some of the things that you've been doing or that you will do that are going to make a difference? Help get over those barriers.
Contact classmates more often if I'm stuck on something.
Great. And how is that going to help?
If I have more people talking about it, most likely that someone's going to figure out the answer to it.
Absolutely. So having more interaction with classmates, you get different perspectives. It's a great success strategy. It also helps you if you are sick and you have to miss class, have somebody you can get in touch with.
Get more sleep.
I'm sorry?
Get more sleep.
More sleep. Really important. How many of you get 8 hours of sleep a night? A couple. How many people get 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night? A few more. How many get less than 6? Lots. Your brain needs sleep to think. And so not only sleeping, but eating, exercising, relaxation, all those things that, help you have a healthy body and mind are really important to schedule in. You have to schedule in the time to do classes, do work, do your homework, but you also got to make sure you're getting this. So that's really important.
I guess building a routine schedule of when to do work and when to have it completed by prevents procrastination and stress building up and snowball effect.
Yeah, so the more routine you can have your schedule be, the better. So with time for class, and how much time do you need to have outside of class for the time you have inside of class?
At least double the length of the class.
At least double, 3 times they're saying for many classes. So for every hour you're in class, so if you have 12 credits, that's 12 hours. It's going to take 2 to 3 hours outside of class. So that's 36 hours to be able to do the work and do well. This will, if you put this time in, and this time, it's really important to be in class, you will do well. You will meet academic progress standards. Yes?
I think forming as close a relationship as you can with your instructor is a good idea.
Yes, close relationships. How is that going to help with instructors?
Well, if the instructor knows where you're coming from, knows you're really trying to do the work, and you being more comfortable talking to the instructor and bringing up concerns, I think is an apple out.
Absolutely. I think most instructors, I'd like to say all instructors, but I know there are 1 or 2 exceptions that I've heard from students. But most instructors want students to succeed. And the more that they know you, the more the more they can be on your side. If they don't know you, it's hard for them to be on your side and go to bat for you. But if you are letting them know who you are because you're visiting them in their office hours, you're talking to them when questions come up, they will go to bat for you. And that has been the times that I've seen that students have been able to get grades changed. They don't go in and just change the grade, but they will work with the student to do more work to improve the grade. And if they know you've been putting in your best effort, they'll probably do that. That's a great one. What else? What other strategies?
Choose someone to compete against.
Choose someone to compete against, and tell me how that's helpful.
Makes it more competitive.
And how does that help you?
Want to crush them academically.
So choose someone to compete with. If you've got a competitive spirit of I'm gonna get a little bit better than you did on that. But I would also encourage you to choose someone to collaborate with.
So we bring down the other person as well.
No,
Okay.
to bring both people or everybody up. And collaboration, interdependence, it's sort of this contact with classmates, study groups, that can really help everyone improve. And so it doesn't have to be a one down, one up. It can be everybody comes up because of being accountable to each other in a study time, having different perspectives about the material, so having more ideas.
For classes graded on a curve, wouldn't it be counterproductive to help other people?
Well, would it be counterproductive for a class graded on a curve?
You want all of them to do that so that way you get better.
Or you could all go up and the curve would just go up more, right? Do our classes graded on curves? I mean, I know some tests are, but are classes ever graded on curves? I don't know about that. Yeah, some tests.
Those finals are, that's actually a lot of great.
What are some other success strategies? Yes.
Spend more time at the college.
Spend more time at the college. That is really a great one. The more that you can spend doing this amount here, the better off you're going to be. Because, and this is not undoable. I mean, it is sometimes for some people, if you have a job. How many people are working? Lots of you. How many people are working 20 hours or more? Ooh, most of you. Ow. How many are working 20 hours or more and trying to go to school full time? A lot of you. That is something that you might want to think about. How can I change this? But the more of this time that you spend here, the more time it's going to be productive on business. Especially if you're working in the learning centers, the tutoring centers, the library, places where people are focusing on the work. And the more time that you spend, say if you're in a math class at the Math Resource Center, the more you're going to stay on track with the math, and there's going to be somebody when you do get stuck to help you think about it. So really good one. What other strategies? Yes?
Being organized.
Being organized, and how do you do that? How do you be organized to help success?
Have a clear idea of what you need to be doing and when you need to be doing it, so you can schedule it.
So clear idea of what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, when you have to do it, how much time it's going to take, and when you think you know how much time it's going to take, double that, because we all underestimate the time for almost anything that has to do with school or work. It's because we don't get specific enough. We think about, I got a paper to do or a project to do, and it's due in 2 weeks, so I got plenty of time, but we don't think about all the different details that are really going to help us, and it's going to take this time, and it's going to help us do well. That I have to select my topic. That takes some thinking. that I might need to run it by somebody to talk about it. I'm going to think about what the different aspects of that are.
Part of the organization, to me, is like when my kids were there,
Mm-hmm.
I had to figure out a time when to do the homework.
Yeah, so how to do homework, how and when to do homework around kids. And that's why if, and this becomes an issue sometimes, I know this isn't really easy, but the more time you can spend on campus before going home, because we all have things that call us away at home. Sometimes it's kids, sometimes it's work, sometimes it's video games, sometimes it's cleaning out a drawer I haven't touched in years, but I do that rather than do this. So do it here. What other things? There's one thing that I haven't heard that I'm not going to let us go till we say that.
I break down what I have to do.
Break down into tasks,
Yeah.
or break down the big job into smaller pieces. That's really important. Because then that's what really helps you get more organized and really think about, instead of write a paper, write my paper by November 1st. It's really getting it down into those little steps. It's also very satisfying to check those little steps off and to realize how much you are doing towards something. What else? There's a really important thing that's not up here yet. I mean, there's lots of important things. This one is high odor, I guess.
Knowing your limits.
Knowing your limits, that's really important. And how does that help you?
And you don't take on more than you can handle.
Yeah. So know your limits and work within those and not take on more. I mean, that has a lot to do with if you're signing up for 12 or 15 or 18 credits a term and only completing half of those. Your limits are less credits than that. That's an important limit to know and to work within. Okay, I'm going to give it to you. Go to class. You got to go to class to be successful. And when people stop going to class, have you ever noticed in a class that along about week 3 or 4, what was a really full classroom all of a sudden becomes there's many more seats available. And why do you think that is? And maybe that's happened for some of you. Yes.
People drop out.
And why? What's going on?
Might be either difficult or it's like there's a situation like personal.
Might be a personal situation.
Or they could just be skipping class.
They could be just skipping class. And when you start skipping class, what happens? You get behind. And then what happens?
You don't feel like showing up.
You don't feel like showing up because you're behind, and so you don't show up anymore. And I can guarantee, as a person who's taught a lot of classes, when you end up with a third of the seats about week 4 are empty, a third of the students have not dropped the class. Probably most of the students, if not all, are still registered in the class. And so it really is that I don't feel like going to class today. I don't go. Maybe I don't have my homework done, so I don't go to class today. I get further behind. I feel further behind. I'm more disengaged from the other classmates, and so I don't go back. Has that happened for anybody here? I bet it has. So if you go to class, whether or not you're prepared, best scenario, go to class, be prepared. Second best scenario, go to class anyway. Because it will give you the motivation, it will give you the information, you'll feel better, I promise. You don't go to class if you are sick, if you got a fever, not just kind of sick, not just sick of school, but go to class unless you got a fever, unless you're throwing up or something, go to class.
I guess you can always buy the books for the class instead of Spark Notes.
Buy the books for your class, or at least get them from the library and go read. So yeah, that's important to have books and the materials and read them. That does that is included in this time. Doing well. What else? Talk about getting connected to classmates, getting connected to teachers. Use your advisors. Know where you're going and use your advisors to get there. How many people might not be totally sure about what major you're doing? Anybody? So tomorrow, and in fact this whole term, there's some workshops going on that that some of the people in the Career Center and the Counseling Center, a couple of folks are putting together. Tomorrow's workshop is specifically on, figuring out how to move forward even if you're not clear about your major. And that's a really important thing. Even if you're not clear about your major, getting that plan together of what you can do that will move you towards a degree is a really important piece. And that's why at the beginning of this, I said, you're going to have to get a term-by-term planner done when you're in your back-on-course class. Better to do it now and use it for registering for winter term. You'll have that task off your list. Write it down and you can check it off and it feels really good. And you'll have a clearer plan of what you need for your degree or your certificate, and you can be taking those classes this next term. You can also talk to somebody about what's been getting in your way, so to make a clear term. These are great success strategies. There's more. I bet you have more on your list. It is important that you go into the term, that you come back with your personal list of what you're going to do and commit to that. So if you have in the past, maybe on your Alert 2 success plan, you said that you were going to use tutors more. Did you? If you didn't, do it. It will make a difference. Excellent students use tutoring. If you did, good. Continue to do that. So figure out what you're going to do and commit to that, because you want to have this be the difference in what you're doing. So here's some considerations as you're figuring out if winter term is the right term. One, is your email address correct in MyLane and in Moodle? Sometimes, even though the email address is supposed to change in Moodle when you change it in MyLane, I've seen it on a number of occasions that hasn't worked. So be sure you're getting email from Lane. Now, this term, but I don't think it'll apply to you because you're not in classes, so it won't apply until you come back. This term, soon, I understand, students at Lane are going to be assigned a Lane email address. So it'll be it's a Google email, so it'll include Google documents and Google applications, but it'll be an @lanecc.edu. It will be the official email that will go out to, all college business will go to you through this email. So information from academic progress standards, information from your classes, from financial aid, from enrollment services. So it's a good thing because it's one place where you'll collect all the information from the school, and that's great. And it also gives you some benefits, like you can get Office 360 for free, you can get reduced costs on software and hardware and things like that, some other student discounts when you have that email. So that'll be coming, and if it comes out this fall like it's supposed to do, I assume when you get registered for classes in the next week or so, that when it comes out, you should have that. So just be watching for that, and in the meantime, watch your other email accounts. Are your finances in order? If you're receiving financial aid, are you in good standing? If you're not in good standing and you're expecting to get financial aid, what do you need to do? And you're going to go, what I really encourage you to do today is to check on MyLane. You're going to check, there's two places to see if you have any other holds. One is MyLane, MyLane, My Enrollment, when can I register? And that'll be where you see the Alert 3 back on course hold. It would show you other holds like I don't have it on this one. It would show other holds like AR, which means accounts receivable, which means that you would owe the college some money and you need to pay that money off before you can register. It might have an AD hold. That's an address hold. That's simply changed by just going into My Lane and making a correction on your address, but that would keep you from registering. The other place you check for holds is My Lane, My Finances, and that's where you're going to see if you have any financial aid holds. We've talked about financial aid warning, suspension, appeal, probation. Credit limit is another financial aid status, and when you get to credit limit, which also has a lot to do about that 67% completion rate, when you start getting to 100 or 110 or 120 credits, at some point the financial aid office is going to say you are approaching credit limit, and that means that you can't achieve your degree within the 150% of the credits that the Department of Ed allows for a student to get their degree. So that's very confusing. But let's say most degrees at Lane, most associate degrees, are 90 credits. So if you're allowed 150% to get that 90 credit degree, 90 credits is 100%, so 45 credits is the 50%. That means you have 135 credits to get that 90 credit degree. Now, you get some extra credits if you started, say, math below, like most students here, below math 100. So if you started like at math 10, 20, 60, 65, 95, those don't count into this 135 credits. You get 45 additional credits to take care of these kind of classes. So when the financial aid office sees that you're starting to hit credit limit, or that you might not be able to complete your degree within this 135 credits or the 2.0 GPA, they have to inform you, and there has to be a clear plan about what you're going to do. So if you have a credit limit letter or a credit limit notification, start taking care of that today. You need to take care of that immediately to be able to come back to school winter term. Do you know who your advising team is? If you don't know who they are, the team is a counselor and an advisor. If you don't know who they are, find out who they are. You can find out in the catalog. You can find out on My Lane. You can find out down in the counseling department. You can find out on Moodle. So find out who your advising team is. And if you haven't seen them recently, go see them. So we talked about holds. And then asking yourself finally, is this really the right term to enroll? I mean, it might be for some of you who are working a lot, it might make more sense to work a whole lot, save money, and then take time away from work or really reduce hours to come back to school. It might make sense to try to get an on-campus job, which takes less time, traveling back and forth, and you have people that understand when it's midterms and you need to take a little bit of time off, or when it's finals and you need to take a little time off, or that your schedule changes each term and that they'll work with you on that. So your next steps, important. You need to submit your completed and signed success plan. So you're going to be turning that in to me before you leave. The Alert 3 registration hold will be released. It'll be released this week sometime. And you are going to be receiving a list of back-on-course CRNs by the end of this week. So through your email, so be sure your email is correct, be sure you're checking your email, you're going to get a list of probably 4 or 5 back-on-course CRNs for winter term. And that you can choose one, and it tells you, you know, what day and time it is and stuff, so you can use that to plan your schedule, and you'll just be able to sign up for that next week if all your holds are released. Registration begins next Monday, so it depends on how many credits you have at Lane, when your registration date is. You can see that in When Can I Register? And the winter class schedule is available today, so you can start looking at what's available and make sure you're taking classes that apply to your degree. And the way to make sure about that is to talk to your advisor. Okay, when you get this release, that release is going to stay in, you're going to have a release, so you won't have any hold on your record, or at least any Alert 3 hold on your record, until the first time that the hold might come back is Thursday before winter term begins. And winter term begins, I don't have the date exactly, but it must be about the 4th of January. So this would be probably December 31st. So whatever that Thursday is before the Monday, if you don't have back on course on your schedule, and you have other classes on your schedule, you'll lose those other classes. And it'll be another term before you can come back. The hold comes back on. So be sure you have back on course class. I would encourage you to have it on soon. And then if you don't have any classes and you don't have back on course, the hold comes back on then too, so that it's going to be the next term. If you do have back on course on your schedule, and you do have other classes on your schedule, the Alert 3 registration hold will reappear at the end of week 1. So you'll have all of week 1, that week that you can make judgments about if you're in the right classes and make changes if you're not in the right classes without any problem to your schedule. That's happening in week 1. You'll be able to do that. But then the Alert 3 registration hold becomes active again until you've successfully completed back on course. And you will have the opportunity to successfully complete the bulk of the requirements of that before registration for spring term begins. So your teachers will tell you, here's what you got to have done, here's what the deadline you have to have it done if you want to register on time, okay? And if you don't do that, you'll have to wait till the end of the term to register. If you drop back on course or don't attend the first class, your other classes will be dropped and you won't be able to continue in that term. So we're going to be, the scheduled back on course classes isn't provided here. It will be emailed to you. If you don't have it by Friday, email Academic Progress Standards and say, where is it? But we will have sent it out before Friday. We'll probably send it out Thursday. Okay? Questions? Everybody clear on what you need to do? Yeah? If you do have questions, the place to get questions answered is Academic Progress Standards, all one word, at lanecc.edu. All one word spelled correctly. So, yeah. All righty. Glad you're here. Glad you're coming back.